how-to on how to remove the front window regulators from your 4th Gen Maxima. These are pretty easy. Obviously the door panel's off already. I have another video on that. Put a link in the description. But once you get the door panel off, the only tool you really need is a 10mm socket to remove this support for the door pull and the regulator bolts, motor bolts, and regulator to window bolts. First thing you're going to want to do is pull back this vapor barrier. If it's hot out, 90 degrees like it is here, this thing pretty much just comes right off. Otherwise it's beetle glue type stuff. It likes to stick on there when it's cold, but it's not really a problem here. You're going to want to take off this support right here for the door pull. It's just 4 10mm head bolts. And you can get to all of these without having to pull this vapor barrier completely off, or have to pull off this handle right here. Alright, that's out of the way. What you want to do is turn your ignition on. Plug your window switch back in. And lower your front window so you can see the 2 bolts right here that hold the window to the regulator. You see right here, there's 1 bolt. This is the actual window glass itself. Here's part of the regulator. 1 bolt for window to regulator. And here's a second one right inside here. So I'm going to go ahead and take both of those out. If you drop them in there, don't really worry about it. You can just reach in and grab them. Alright, now once it's off, once those 2 bolts are out, there's a couple different ways you can handle the window glass. You can either stick it up in place, wedge some rubber hose in between the window and the inner door frame. You can use the special tool for it, which is basically 2 suction cups connected with a steel cable, and they go over the top of the window frame. Or you can just pull the glass out, which is the easiest, gets it out of your way. And from here, it just takes a second. Pull the glass out, all you have to do is grab on it, take it out at an angle, and lift up. You can see on the glass, these are the 2 tabs that you put the bolts through to attach it to the regulator. I stick that somewhere out of the way. Best place I found is on top of the car, because you're not likely to kick it, knock it around, anything like that. Right now, for removing the regulator itself, you have 2 bolts at the top of the track right there, 3 bolts on the motor right there, and 2 bolts on the bottom of the track, there and there. So go ahead and remove all 7 of those bolts. You're going to want to remove all of them completely except for this upper leftmost bolt. Now you'll notice that it has an elongated hole. There we go. Notice that next to the bolt there's a little channel and a large open hole here. And that's so you can just loosen the bolt, then slide it out without having to remove the bolt entirely. That helps when installing the new regulator, be able to actually hang it in place and not have to worry about lining bolts up while you're still holding the damn thing up. So once you get all those out, this one loosened, you're going to want to disconnect the power window motor. It's located right down here. Just lift up the tab, pull the connection apart. The motor's got two little hooks that hook into the inner door panel, or inner door frame. Lift those out. And the entire regulator comes out in one piece. And see, if you need to swap the motor over to a new one, it's 3 Phillips head screws, which may be a bit tough to get off, but they'll come out of there. And if you're just pulling yours out because your window is slow, you're taking the glass out to clean and lube the run channel and everything, now's a good time to inspect the regulator for any broken or partially broken parts. Make sure the cable's wound on there nice and good, and everything looks good. So we'll get to reinstallation. Alright, now to reinstall, take your new regulator or your old regulator or whatever, and position it like this, with the actual motor facing out. Stick it down inside the door. And see this. Reach over and get these little tangs on the motor itself through the door frame. Go ahead and throw some screws or some bolts in there right now. Then this upper bolt on this guide, on this track, I'll stick through that hole and slide it over so it just rests like that. Put your other bolts back in. I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the motor bolts right now. I'm going to wait on the bolts for this track until I have the window glass in place. It's probably not necessary, but it's just personal preference. So now we're going to take the window glass and reinstall it. Installation is just as easy as removal. Thread this through the opening. Make sure you line up this far side near that run channel. Bring it down. As you angle it in, make sure you get this side of the glass with that run channel as well. Now when you're installing the window glass, you want to be sure as you come down, you're just going to line up the glass with the regulator right here so you can throw those bolts in. I'm going to stick these two regulator to glass bolts back in. Go ahead and tighten those up. Turn the ignition back on, roll the window all the way up, and now is when I like to go ahead and tighten down all the bolts for this window track here. But once you got the these track bolts tightened, motor bolts, the two window to regulator bolts, now you're ready to reinstall this vapor barrier along with this here. ahead and throw some. And these are all self-tapping screws. They thread into a plastic insert in the door frame, so you don't want to mix these up. These won't go into any of the other holes that are expecting machine threads. You could probably force the other screws and the other bolts in here, but just keep track of your bolts, where they came from, where they go, and you won't really have an issue. Plug your window switch. Throw this vapor barrier back up into place. Now's a good time to go ahead and function test it again. So window switch back in. And there we go. Works perfectly. This one's got a little bit of a judder going down because the regulator's so worn out, but I'll just live with it. So, put the door panel back on and you're good to go. That is removing and replacing the front window regulators in your 4th Gen Maxima.